guess what? We're back again. My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live. All thanks to the Mumbai Indians. We've had our wonderful show split into two. We've talked about the previous game, clinical finish for Mumbai, and now we're looking ahead to this critical fixture between Bangalore and Hyderabad, two teams who have traditionally played spoilers to each other. This is coming to you from Sharjah. Virat Kohli acknowledged this before the start of the game, saying, well, I remember that Hyderabad have done it to me, or done it to us rather, in the past. Quick news for the toss. It's the Sunrisers who have won the toss and asked Virat Kohli's men to bat, something they were most happy about because Kohli said he would have batted first. Shaun Pollock Joy Bhattacharjya still in the house. Shaun, just in terms of where this stacks up from the toss, Bangalore wouldn't mind just putting runs on the board and putting Hyderabad under pressure.
Yeah, I think each team's got their favourite thing to do, to chase. I think also this ground, we're not sure what we're going to get from a surface. In the first 5 games there, boy, oh boy, you didn't want to be a bowler. But it's sort of changed up a little bit. And sometimes at the back end, if you bowl first, you get a feel. And then you know what you have to chase and how you approach it. But I think Bangalore actually are playing their best cricket when they put runs on the board. So I think it's probably worked into the strength of both teams. Even if you hadn't gone to the middle and had a toss, you probably would have gone this option for both teams. So I think it's worked out nicely. And let's see how the surface plays and how Bangalore bats up front.
Yeah, that will be critical because that's what the story has been of runs at the top. Not quite two-dimensional like Punjab were early on with Rahul and Mayank Agarwal. But they have relied on certainly Padikkal, who's been a key for them this season.
No, absolutely. I think Padikkal has been fantastic for them. And if you look at Padikkal, if you take away Padikkal, given the fact that Josh Philippe is coming in and out, and Finch has been very inconsistent, he's tried his best and he's an international captain, but just somehow has not given them solidity. I think so Padikkal for me still is the rookie of the year for the IPL so far. And what he's done with them is given them calmness. And what has improved for me over these last few days has been his shot selection. So, he's now picking better shots to hit, better balls to hit. He knows what he's doing. He's an intelligent young kid. And this should be good for him. I mean, and remember one thing, SRH's bowling attack, it's very workmanlike, but other than Rashid Khan, there's not much to write home about.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be key. We've talked about it from the start of the season. I mean, even without the explosion, you have a Bhuvaneshwar Kumar coming in, bowling that first over. There was some sense of reassurance every time he would do that. Since he's left, it's just that reliance on the bowling attack, other than Rashid Khan, has not quite been that match-winning attack. But let's look at the points table because that's what matters right now. We've seen it several times in the opening game, and now that that's done and dusted, with Mumbai the only team with the queue. Delhi could have had one today if they wanted, but they didn't, and they've even fallen behind Punjab in the net run rate. Bangalore, however, Shaun, can pick up a win today and get the queue next to their name.
Yeah, they can. It'd be a massive incentive for them. They've been a little bit unsettled and probably haven't played their best cricket. So if they get over that line, that's the kind of confidence you need. And you can go into your last game and just express yourselves, really get into a good space for the knockout. So that'll be their focus. But SRH will be thinking, okay, it's still in our hands. We get 2 wins. You never know where they could end up. So it's nicely poised. And, SRH, as you mentioned, they have just found a sort of a plan. Bhuvi was a huge blow for them, and him not being able to participate. But they have sort of just come up with a plan. It's based around Rashid, don't get me wrong. In the middle overs, he is the king. He is the one that they have to rely on to try and strike and keep things tight. But the rest of the guys have worked out their roles. And that's why I think they're starting to look like they're a better unit.
Now, Joy, earlier we made a cheeky comment about Piyush Chawla having moved on, changed his jersey, and that individuals move on. But at this stage of the tournament, a strange thing starts to happen. One team starts to cheer on another team because it might help their causes. So I think there's going to be a few teams who are cheering on Bangalore because they want Bangalore and Mumbai to run away at the top. And
Absolutely.
Then everything's...
Absolutely. Rajasthan and Kolkata will both be solidly cheering Bangalore. They just need Bangalore. They're saying, you know what, you're good guys. Go qualify, finish this off, and just sit out there. Because the moment SRH is out of the equation, that whole game changes because SRH's run rate is so superior that, while they're around in the tournament, neither of these teams could ever feel secure. Once, if this guy gets knocked out, if at this point in time SRH gets knocked out, Kolkata and Rajasthan will heave a sigh of relief. And then they'll actually say that, you know what, we could just end up ahead of Delhi as well. We could sneak into third place. Not that it makes much of a difference, but they could sneak into third place as well, because by that time, if they win today, Bangalore are in second place. It's going to be Bangalore and Bombay who get the two chances to play them.
Yeah. So I think at the moment, I mean, there are some teams who are just saying, okay, let's get into the top four now. Mumbai have assured themselves a 1 and 2. Let's just remind you of that with their thumping victory over Delhi earlier today. But it's the game right now that we are focusing on. We'll be coming to the teams and the team changes very shortly, Shaun. But a quick one, just from Hyderabad's point of view. We've talked about Bangalore, win, get the Q next to their name. Hyderabad also, in a sense, not all is lost because things are in their own hands. Win this one, win the next one. Things are pretty much 99% there.
Yeah, net run rate good. They win this game, all of a sudden they go to 12. And then there's a good chance they play an under-strength Mumbai side. Mumbai already guaranteed of 1 and 2. You know, it's an opportunity to rest a few players, keep them fresh for the knockout stages. You want everyone raring to go. Also don't want to risk someone like a Bumrah picking up a little niggle in that match. So, yeah, I think it's massive. If they can win this game, all of a sudden the self-belief will grow and they'll start to believe. And, you know, as it mentions it, that net run rate, it always comes down to the net run rate. And, you know, even in the first game of the season, when you got guys and they set a total of 200 and people will get within, like I say, get to 120, you always say to themselves, be careful, make sure you try and push it, because by the end of the season, it all counts. And sure as nuts, we're here at the back end and it's important again.
Yeah, we talked about it a few times. There was one Kolkata game. There were a couple of Chennai games where we said, what are they playing for? And when we suggested net run rate, there were a few eyebrows raised, but you can see now that it does make sense. What also makes sense is a bit of planning when it comes to picking your My 11 Circle teams. You just need to spend a few minutes, get onto the site, download the app in case you haven't done that, if you're a newcomer. If you have, here's a reminder that we're going to be showing you the teams very shortly for your confirmation to who you can get in, who you can't, maybe the odd regular who's missing. And we can do that right now. The teams that are confirmed, we'll start with the Hyderabad team. And that one solitary change that we are talking about is Abhishek Sharma coming in it's a forced change in that sense because Vijay Shankar is unfit. So Abhishek Sharma comes in. Logical choice, Joy?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no other player they could have gone with. Remember, Abhishek Sharma also bowls some amount of left arm spin. So they're going to get someone in. You know, Vijay Shankar gave them 4 overs in the last match, or I think 3 or 4 overs he gave them. So I think it's, the previous match, the last match, of course, he walked out with a hammy. But he gives them, and Abhishek Sharma gives them something. He has a bit of an X factor. Remember, he had a great game where he and Priyam Garg literally won it for them. If you remember, early on, they had a big partnership and won it for them. So he's not a kid. He's got experience and he can turn it on. It's a very, very difficult stage, and it doesn't help that you are in and out of the side, in and out of the side. But if I'm Abhishek Sharma, I look at it and say, this is a chance of a lifetime. It's a chance to be a hero.
Yeah, it's a big body blow, Shankar, isn't he? I mean, he was finding form. He was really starting to play some good cricket. So they've had the bit of bad luck, at the early part of the tournament, Marsh and, Bhuvi. So those are huge blows. But I think the key for me is Ridwan Sahar. The fact that he's back is great. He comes in fine form. But I just hope from a mindset perspective, he's in a good space, because sometimes when you sit on the side, you can think, if I just get my one more chance, if I get my one chance, I'll show them that I can play. And you put all your energy into that. And he performed brilliantly and he was absolutely superb. But now he has to understand, listen, hold on, I can be in this team and make a contribution to the back end of the tournament. And if we get into the knockouts, I can still help them almost get over the line. So it'll be important that he refreshes his memory, doesn't think, okay, well, I was of getting back into the team. I've shown them I can play. He needs to come back again and put in a good quality performance on what will be a different surface, but one that I think will suit him.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I was thinking was that Riddhiman in the domestic circuit is known as one of the best players of spin. He plays spin brilliantly. His only problem is that perhaps sometimes he's not well matched up against the fast men. But the interesting thing is, in the last match, he had 2 of the fastest men go at him and he got runs off it. So you never know what happens. But traditionally, the secret to keeping Riddhiman Shah quiet is what they call either at your feet or at your head and at 140 plus. And Navdeep Saini would know that. All the fast bowlers would know that. Mind you, Udana is not that fast, Navdeep Saini and Chris Morris will be just making sure, because he's a great, great player of spin.
And
He wouldn't mind them at all.
that's a confirmation why we're talking about Navdeep Saini. He's back. First question that was asked at the toss, you could see relief in Virat Kohli's face when he announced that Navdeep Saini would come back, and out goes Shivam Dube and Isuru Udana, like-for-like replacement for Dale Steyn, who you could see wasn't exactly the Dale Steyn that we all know. Shaun, happy with this 11?
Yeah, just missing his plane on the side of the graphic there. But anyway,
Yeah.
I think Dale Steyn, shame. I felt for him in the last game. He came back. He sat on the side for a long time, but he did look short of a gallop. Didn't look at his best, and no surprise that they've gone to Udana, who gives you the left-hand option. He's got some good slow ball cutters on this kind of surface, and obviously can contribute with the bat as well. There we go. He's updated. He hasn't gone on the plane to go home. He's just showing you that he's an overseas player.
Yeah, good spot, Shaun. Very good spot that the plane was missing there. But yeah, that is for overseas players. Remember, it's not necessary they have to play for overseas players. Teams have gone with less than that, but these are the 4 they're playing. But that's as far as. Just one more point I wanted to make to finish off on Ridhiman Saha. If everybody remembers the first time, his first effort with the bat, he was really criticized because he didn't look a shadow of himself. And when he came back, everyone was saying, oh dear, Ridhiman Saha is back again. And how he's responded, Joy, just shows his mental strength.
He is one of the strongest cricketers in the Indian setup I've seen. I told you, he came through. He was not even Bengal's wicketkeeper. The India wicketkeeper, Deep Dasgupta, was Bengal's keeper. Deep Dasgupta joins the Indian ICL, the Indian Cricket League at that point. This opens up. A young kid from North Bengal gets a chance. And then I remember in the KKR matches, the reason the second keeper was taken, Tavadenda Taibu was taken, was everyone was scared. How does a kid from Bengal keep to the likes of Shoaib Akhtar and Umar Gul and Ishant Sharma? And he was absolutely brilliant. So, he's mentally one of the strongest cricketers I've seen. That's my point. My point is that here he's very strong. It's a question of whether his ability with the bat, especially against fast bowling, will hold up. He has all the strength in the world. He's a very strong cricketer.
Yeah, one of the challenges yeah, go ahead, Shaun.
Yeah, I think the adjustment of, you had him in the middle order in that game, and when he walks to the crease and the field spread, some guys find it difficult to pick up boundaries, to pick up the intensity. Whereas in the next game, he goes up the top of the order. Every time he hits a good shot, he picks up a boundary. His strike rate's up. He feels calm, and then he plays from there. So, sometimes it's also got to do with the position where you bat. That does contribute to you being able to do a job, and I think he's better suited to this, where he gets full value for his shots at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's turn our attention to the opposition, someone who will play a key role. When it comes to a crunch game, when it comes to a big game, you've got to talk about the big names. And the biggest name of them all, Virat Kohli, perhaps doesn't have the biggest stats of all in the tournament. And that's one of the things that he'll focus on. Have a look at the Boost Stamina Meter. Normally, it's something, if we look at the leaderboard, he'd be right up there. This time, overall rating 79.9. And it's something Virat would be most conscious about. 424 runs is not bad, but it's not Virat Kohli standard. And if you look at his runs, 66% of his runs. And I think the biggest thing that we can focus on from all those numbers, Shaun Pollock, you'll pick up on that one. The strike rate, 122.5. That, if you show it to Virat Kohli, he'll be the first one to put his hand up and say, I know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, stamina-wise, he's so involved, isn't he? I mean, it doesn't matter if he's sitting on the side. He's still burning energy because he's involved in the game. But I think what we've come to expect from him, and he's set his own standards, is that he does get the runs, and he's done well to get into the top 5 or 6 of run getters in the tournament so far. But just from an impact perspective, he's the kind of guy who should be striking almost at 140. So when he is at 122, he'll feel to himself like he can do more for his team. He can alleviate pressure, and he can put other opposition onto the back foot. So that'll be something he'll be conscious of. He would love it to come good in these next 2 and take it into the playoffs and really kickstart and really play with some massive intensity at that time. But, the star players are always setting their standards, and we become accustomed to what they've set us. And when they don't quite go and achieve what they do, then we always say, well, something's not quite right. So I know he will be sitting there thinking, strike rate wise, I can definitely improve. And maybe tonight at Sharjah would be that chance.
Yeah, early on in the tournament, remember, Joy, went through a lean patch of form, a couple of soft dismissals, and then he put things together. But yes, even though the runs have now started coming, perhaps as you said, we talked about Padikkal briefly. It's just hidden, that gap in the net run rate or the strike rate rather for Kohli.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he really came into his own after that four in the super over. Before that super over, Virat Kohli was not even looking the kind of player that he looks like every year. But look at the class of the man. This is not one of his great years. This is not 2016 or 2013 or 2016. But he's still 424 runs. He still managed to go and get so many runs for his team, and that's what great players do. I have seen at least two innings out here where Virat has struggled. He's struggled. He's not got timing, but he somehow sat in the crease and said, "You know what? I'm going to bear it out." And my sense is, again, Virat's run rate improves when he starts hitting in the last part, where he's hitting at 200, 250, 260 in the last, 3, 4, 5 overs. He really goes berserk. That's where he, pushes his run rate up. And now he's just not batting that deep long enough for him to be able to get his run rate. So he'll just tell himself that if I can bat till the 17th, 18th over, whatever my run rate is, strike rate is to start off with, I'll end up at 145, 150 by end.
Well, one challenge he definitely will have up against him is certain talisman bowler in the opposition in Rashid Khan. That'll be a great, great battle, Rashid Khan versus Virat Kohli. And like Jasprit Bumrah has been throughout the tournament, and we talked about what he did in the previous game, Rashid Khan will be a huge impact for Sunrisers, especially with the likes of Bhuvaneshwar Kumar missing, Shaun.
Yeah, it is. And, from a captaincy perspective, you actually can't explain how nice it is to have someone in the game like Rashid Khan, because, we talked about earlier in the other show about the first 6 overs, and it's so important about how it goes. You try and control that, but you just know, no matter what happens, whether they don't lose a wicket or whether they go at an excessive run rate, you get him in and invariably it has an impact. And those figures are brilliant. And there's the overs he's bowled. I mean, that's when he comes into his own, and he really, if the team's out of the game, he brings them back into the game. If they're on top, he reinforces that position that they're in. And he's just sensational. His value to that side is immense. I know there was a poll at one stage to say whether he is or isn't valuable or more valuable than other individuals. His value, I don't think you can equate for Sunrisers in particular.
And one thing we saw in that list, Joy, is that he's not been necessarily biased towards a particular ground. Yes, the 3 for 7 in Dubai was outstanding, but he's contributed in every one of the 3 venues.
I think he adjusts very well. He adjusts brilliantly. He knows his role. His job is to come in the middle order. He does better, obviously. If batsmen have to take risks against him, he's even better, because then he's got something to play with. What a lot of teams are trying to do is play him out and say that this SRH attack is not great otherwise. So if he can just somehow play out Rashid Khan, what's happening as a result is sometimes they're getting ultra defensive. So they're giving him 13 and 14, and then they're giving him a wicket as well. And it's playing into his hands. There's only 1 or 2 teams who really managed to collar him. But I mean, as I said, any bowler in the world will get hit for 1 or 2 matches out of 12, 13. It's going to happen. And that kind of strike rate or success rate, any captain, any coach would take.
Yeah, but the real talking point when Bangalore and Hyderabad come up against each other at this point in the tournament is what's happened earlier. Why did Virat Kohli come and say that I need to be wary of Hyderabad? He normally doesn't really give any of his cards away. And he actually made a statement before the game saying that, yes, they've done it to us in the past. And it's not just Bangalore to Hyderabad. They've returned the favor. And let's actually bring you up to date as to exactly what's happened. Playing party spoilers for each other, and it goes back to 2012. Why match number 71? Yeah, 9 teams on that occasion. Bangalore were eliminated by Hyderabad. That's where the history went through. In 14 and 15, neither ended up going through. 2018, another big one. 14-run victory. Bangalore failed to go and qualify, and Hyderabad sneaked through in 2019 by net run rate. So it's been a traditional rivalry, Joy, but it's sometimes they do it to each other.
Yeah, they keep doing it to each other, and it's fascinating because these things, especially people like Virat Kohli, they're students of the game. So when he said this, Virat Kohli is one of those guys who remembers every innings he's played, every match he's played, what's happened in the previous. So he's got it in the back of his head. These guys have done it to us before. But if anything, I think this time he'll look at it and say that, look, if I can somehow see Rashid Khan out, the rest of these guys I can take on. There's no Bhuvi out there. I think I should be fine. I mean, that's how he'd like to be cautiously optimistic is the words I'd use for Virat Kohli right now.
But yeah, I mean, we've mentioned this individual a couple of times, and the reason why, I mean, 424 is an excellent haul. AB de Villiers has maybe come off his own little towards the latter end of the tournament, but not enough for Bangalore's liking. But the reason why they're still where they are on the table is because of one new discovery. For those who have watched him in domestic cricket, knew his class, they knew what to expect. But for everybody else, he's been a great revelation. Devdutt Padikkal, my 11 circle trump card. If you have not decided to put him in, put him in. We talked about Ishan Kishan in the previous game. For those of you who put him in, got plenty of points. What an asset, Shaun, Devdutt Padikkal has been this season. Unheralded in a sense. Those who hadn't watched him in domestic cricket didn't know what to expect. Now they do.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't seen him at all, and been immensely impressed by what I've seen from him. Left-hander at the top of the order is so key, also for Bangalore with all their right-handers. And yeah, he's been superb. I think he's got a great choice of shots. He looks very elegant. He backs himself. And I'm sure over the years, you know, he's a big guy, so he's got a bit of a presence as well. And he'll go from strength to strength. Why Joy hasn't picked him in his team for today, I don't know. I mean, I know he's expecting him maybe not to get runs, but I don't see it. I don't know why. I don't know why he's not backing him.
I just have nothing to say. I'm just one of those things.
You're still not backing him, Joy? Is it the law of averages?
I think I'm playing law of averages. There's this book behind me called Standard Deviation, which
okay, pull it out. Come on, we haven't had a book out for a long time, Joy. Come on.
This is a book called Standard Deviation, and what it does is it tells you very interesting things how you can torture statistics. So, for example, you know, one of the things, and I won't mention which star it is. There's an India batsman who had an average of about 35, 37, 38, and that's if you look at the 90s, that's a pretty good average. But where you see the average is, it's an average fatted up by not outs in games India had already lost. Which means that, you know, somebody's batting, India is 15 for 4 or 25 for 4, and they're chasing 260, and somebody comes in and hits an unbeaten 50, and India ends up at 170. So here's the question. What happens is, you have statistically, he's got lots of, you know, his average is 35, 40. But if you look at innings in which he's actually contributed to India victories, it's very different. So, you know, this book is all about statistics like that when you see an average, you see it in front of you, but there's lots behind it which you need to understand, that it's not always, I mean, statistics, they say, is like a bikini. You know, what it holds back from you is more than what it reveals. So that's what I believe.
Okay, we'll need to stop Joy over there, because he's treading in dangerous territory. And this is not a Joy factor question, by the way. We had a different one. But in case you think you know the answer to who the person who Joy was hinting at, feel free to tell us on #Cricbuzz Live. In case you didn't win the Joy factor question, maybe we can mention you, give you an honorable mention for getting this particular one in. But Joy,
I'm not giving this answer. I'm not giving this answer.
That's okay. We'll just see what people say. We'll just see what the people out there say. But since you pulled out your standard deviation book, I know you've put it back now. You go first to try and decide what the spread for the score. Standard deviation, spreads, mean, median, mode. I mean, we're going to follow you, Joy. You're going to lead the way for the 20 over score for the Royal Challengers in Sharjah. Wow, this is going to be a big one.
Actually, I'm going to go low. I'm going to lowball this 154, because I have a feeling this surface is a tricky first batting surface.
Interesting. 154. Do you agree with him, Shaun?
No, I'm not having any of that. I'm going higher than that, that's for sure. I'm just not too sure whether to go 177 or 187. I'm going 187.
Ooh. If you've gone that high, I can't further.
You can park a truck inside what's left.
I will park definitely. A huge gap between bat and pad, and I will squeeze in at 172. 172, I'm going to squeeze in there. But we can see. Will it be a traditional Sharjah type 200? Will Hyderabad suddenly pull out some magic Rashid Khan 3 for 7 type figures and make it a 140 type? Well, we shall wait and see. We'll get a good idea of it in the 10th over, where we'll assess everything on Cricbuzz Combox. And then, of course, lots more to talk about in this crucial encounter. Is it Q for Bangalore, or is it survival for Rajasthan, rather for Hyderabad to stay alive? My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live. Don't go too far.